Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new video. Today's video is going to be very exciting, very cool, very fun, very awesome, because as always, and as we continue moving forward, we're going to be going through gear, but I'm also going to be linking some affiliate links in the description down below that I get a very, very small commission off if you do choose to purchase any of the gear below from those links. So if you do want to support the channel and support me for creating this wonderful piece of content, then make sure to use those links. Thank you so much, as always. So, we're using the Rode VideoMic Pro on the top of the camera. We're going to be shooting on this lens, most likely, which is the Sigma 18-35 f1.8 on the Nikon D5300. And over here, while I put that down, we have the Nikon 7200, which will be potentially shooting on this lens here, I think is the plan. And yeah, and also we may end up shooting on the
A few moments later
70-300 f4. But the problem is we're going to be quite close to the cathedral, so unless we're looking for, I might play around. I don't know. Ideally, at some point in the future, I want to buy another wider lens, because there's a lot of scenarios where I'm trying to shoot 2 time lapses and I also want to vlog at the same time. So for example, this lens would be really good for a time lapse, lens. This is obviously a good time lapse lens as well, because you can't really vlog on it because it's just too tight when you go to do the vlog stuff. So the one I am looking at, and I might pull the trigger on sooner rather than later, is the Takina 11-20 f2.8, which is basically the pro version of this lens here that we're using. Phone, shush. I'm gonna pack up the gear now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a new segment of the video. Thought I was nearly going to do it, so I'm going to shoot the cathedral today. That's the plan. The sun is going to set over here, as you can see here. The sun is right there, and going to head down. The plan for this shoot, as I say, is to shoot the change in how the sun looks as it sets from the cathedral, and then illuminate, and then becomes illuminated. So we've got 2 tripods set up here, one for probably a title angle, followed by, one for a tighter angle, followed by then the Sigma. So I'm going to set up cameras now, but I'll catch up with you when we got time lapses rolling. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to catch up with you when everything's done, because I need this lens, because the 70mm is too tight. So we're going to shoot on this lens and the Sigma. So I'm now going to set both of those time lapses up. So I'll see you very soon. Make sure the copyrighted music is not playing into this microphone. Hello ladies and gents, I hope you're well. So that has wrapped up today's shoot pretty much. I'm going to go completely dark, but I wanted just to show you the cathedral has gone dark. I have the other camera just behind the light still rolling, and yeah, we're now going to head back to the office. I'm going to just talk you through how I edit these, and we're going to do a brief comparison on what the P mode and the other camera that's still shooting actually looks like. So I did one with manual and one on P mode, so we're going to do the editing process on that now. So I'll see you at the office. Recording. Let's find out if we're in focus in any way. My head's a bit cut off, but we can fix that by using an A10 Mini. Welcome back ladies and gents, I hope you are doing well. I hope you don't mind. Just come back from the shoot, just had a little bit of food, very exciting. Well now, if I capture over here on the computer, we're now going to edit these time lapses. But these time lapses aren't even on my computer yet, because I wanted to show you how I organize my files. I'm going to set this up, but I want to talk you through how I do my file management. So obviously we're going to need to dump some images. first. So I'm going to overlay what I'm currently seeing, and we're going to get these cameras a little bit out of the way. Everything's starting to fog up already, which is great because of how cold it got when we were outside. So first thing you're going to do, plug in your memory cards. This is something I'd recommend everyone does. And then what you want to do is you want to set up a new folder. Let's maximize this. Let's live a little. Set up a new folder, and you're going to call it whatever it is. So in this case, time lapse video, time lapse video at the back of Cathedral. Press enter. Then I'm going to make a folder also from what camera I used. So I used two cameras time-lapse wise, D7200, also a new folder, D7300. There we go, magic. So what you want to do is you want to find where on your card specifically you are looking for, so that where the sequence begins. So we've got this lovely high street time lapse that we did this morning or a little bit this afternoon. So we don't want that. So we're going to scroll past that. Keep going past to get to the start of, which should be the Holy Grail after this. He says, scrolling, here we are. So we have a couple of test shots at the start, but that doesn't matter. So then what we're going to do is we're going to grab this sidebar, go all the way down to the bottom. We don't want this last frame. So then we're just going to drag all of these files into, what camera was this? So this was the wide angle. So we're going to drop this into the D5300 folder, like so. And that's going to copy over. So I'll see you in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So there we are, job done. We are back. So now we're going to just safely remove the card because we don't need it anymore. So we're going to remove the card as you would do normally. This is capturing on my second monitor, so you wouldn't be able to see that, but you would just do that as normal. So we're done with that card, which is cool. So that card's out. Now we're going to do the same thing with 7200. It's going to be identical, but it's going to be obviously the other perspective or the other shot. So we're going to go through and we're going to find what else is on this card, and we're going to hunt for where that time lapse ends and where our tonight's begins. So we have a moonrise shot, there we go, and we're gonna blitz all the way down to the bottom of here. And this would be a good experiment to show you what happens when you shoot a lapse and you go beyond 99999, what your camera does, but then also how that changes your editing process. And this is also going to be a great opportunity, as I say, for us to test the differences between P mode and manual mode. And then just because I'm curious, I want to have a little look just to make sure we had focus and everything, which we did. We were a little bit off when it comes to the actual horizon, but it wasn't too bad, to be fair. I kind of like this foreground, actually, to be honest. I'm going to straighten the cathedral a little bit because for those who don't know who aren't local, the cathedral spire is slightly on the leaning side. So I'm now going to see you in about 2 minutes again. Voila, we are done. So now we're going to move on to the next step, which is in LRTimelapse. Now, LRTimelapse is going to open on the wrong monitor, but I will drag it to the correct monitor in just a moment when it's actually open. So we're going to go no, we're going to go no, and then we're going to drag it over here. And then what we want to do is want to navigate to where we saved these time lapses. So in this case, we made a folder that, since I've completely forgotten, even though I just made it, there we go, time lapses video at the back of the cathedral. So we're going to open it, there we go, and we're going to go the D5300, we're going to do that one first. We apparently took 484 images. I was expecting to shoot more, but sometimes you shoot more than you expect. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this, and what it's going to do is it's going to open up all of the raw files in that sequence, and it's going to analyze them and make sure it understands what interval there is, what aperture it was, and what the shutter speed was. So, and we'll do this, and it's going to create this blue line that we can see here. That's just going across the screen at the moment. And what that basically is going to show us is the exposure change, right? So this was the camera which was shooting completely automatic using P mode, and that is something which I like to do. Is I took a couple of test shots, as you can see here. So we've got 1 test shot, 2 test shot, 3 test shot, 4 test shot, and then the 4th one is actually the start of the time lapse. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete those couple of test shots. So I'm going to just select those by holding down Shift and then pressing the arrow key going down, and then we're going to just delete those images. So then we go. So now we only have the images from the actual time lapse itself. Now, part of this flickering that's happening is partly to do with the fact that we shot it so wide, right? And also on this lens. This lens has a habit of doing that, but it's also because of how wide we shoot it, and I didn't declick the lens, which is a technique which you can do and should do as well. So there is some deflickering work to be done here, but what I'm doing is I'm just scrubbing to see, and just having a little look through and scrubbing and having a look to see if there's any artifacts or anyone walking in front of the lens or etc., any frames that I want to clean up or remove. But it doesn't, it actually looks pretty okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go up to here with the keyframe wizard. So what this allows us to do is it's going to set a number of keyframes between the start of the time lapse and the end of the time lapse. Now, because we shot it on an automatic mode, it doesn't actually necessarily realize that we've had a Holy Grail mode or want a Holy Grail effect. So what I like to do is I like to bump up the amount of keyframes, because personally I think we're going to probably need about 5 from this one, and then we're going to force this button here, which is known as Force Holy Grail Keyframe Mode. So what this is going to allow us to do is, because we shot it in A mode or P mode, it is going to just warn us what we're doing. And what this is going to have is basically, these are all of the times when the camera decided it wanted to change the setting. So what you want to do is LRTimelapse is going to save that data, and then it's going to counter intuitive. So say, for example, oh, we changed it this way, so we're going to add that same change in to smooth out that change, so there's less change and less flicker, and the smooth, when it changes, how it changes a lot smoother. That's the goal there. But what you want to do here is you want to get this line as flat as humanly possible. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and get it onto this yellow line here. So we've got rotation, which is going to move the top and the end point down and up depending, and then we've got stretch, and I'm going to press the wrong button and hopefully that won't have done anything. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're just going to play around, and we're not looking for a perfect line here. You're just trying to get it as close to that middle line as humanly possible. So when you've got what you feel is as close as we're going to get, and I think we're pretty close, we're then going to go and we're going to hit save. Now what this is going to do is it's going to save those keyframed specific elements, or those keyframe specific images are going to be set as 5 stars. Then any one where the camera has changed is going to be set as the 3-star in Lightroom. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Lightroom, going to open up Lightroom. And we've got this beautiful shot that we shot this afternoon of the high street, and we're going to go to import now. Now I'm very curious what it's going to do. Oh, it did actually work. Cool, fab. So now what we're going to do, going to go to LRTimelapse. No, I say go to LRTimelapse, not just open Lightroom on top. Then we're going to click this drag to Lightroom button, hold down and click all the way down into Lightroom, and then we're going to drag it in and import our sequence. And we're just going to go all the way down to the bottom until we see some thumbnails. There we go. Then we're going to hit import. And we're going to wait for it to import and fetch the previews, because this will slow down your computer quite religiously and quite a lot, to be honest. So we're just going to wait for these 2 operations to finish, and then we'll be back. So what Lightroom is doing right now is it's just taking those very small previews that LRTimelapse created for us, and it's just updating them so we can see them in Lightroom. That's what it's doing right now, and it's about halfway done. And the reason why I normally don't start editing until this process is done is it's going to slow down your computer a little bit, and even my quite beefy laptop is going to find it very difficult. Obviously, if you're on a desktop computer, this becomes quite a lot faster, a lot easier of a process to do. So when we are done, as you can see, we can see at the bottom here, we've got a couple of 4-star or 5-star images. Then we've got a couple of 2-star images. Now these 2-star images is where the camera decided to change its settings. So LRtimelapse has just marked those so it knows where they are, and it knows where it marks them in 2 to 3s because it depends on how much step or whether it's going up or down. And that's just Comfort's code just deciding which way to go. But what we're after is is that 5? I think it's 5 stars or 4 stars. 4 stars. We're after all the 4-star ones that I know as keyframes. So what we're going to do is when you get LRtimelapse, you'll be automatically added into the scripts. When you add in the scripts to a Lightroom specifically, you will go down to this filter button. And what you want to do is you want to go to -01 LRtimelapse 5 keyframes. So what this is going to do is this is just going to show you those 5 keyframes that we set in LRtimelapse specifically, right? Then we're going to go to the develop module and we're going to edit our first image just as if it was a normal photograph, right? So we can play around with our exposure. Obviously that's a bit too much, that's a bit too far. Don't like this banding in the sky. So we're going to see if we can fix that. I'm going to pump in a little bit of contrast. So it's lovely in focus. I mean, I just like to double check is before I start working on a time lapse specifically, make sure the thing's in focus. Always take a little bit of extra time when it comes to the actual shooting process to make sure that your stuff's in focus. You don't want to be in a situation like I had in this vlog where we went and shot the moonrise, where my tight focus length version of the time lapse was completely out of focus. So moving back to the editing progress, I'm going to do this very quickly because I've done this 1,000 times, but basically you would do this as any other normal image that you would normally edit in Lightroom whenever you're editing images or editing photos. So I'm just playing around with the saturation. I try not to touch texture, clarity or dehaze unless I have, and sometimes I touch dehaze but not much because it's going to really not work very well in my opinion with time lapses, and a lot of people who I spoke to about or have spoken to about time lapses in general, they say don't normally touch that. And then you just want to scroll down to make sure you can remove your Arabic aberrations and also make sure your profile for your lens that you were using, and if you're shooting on a manual lens, like for example I'm shooting on the GH5, it can't tell what lens is on it because I'm having to adapt the lens to Nikon mounts. So then you would just go in and you would find the lens you were using, and there we go. So the first image I'm pretty happy with the edit of. I'm just going to put it down a slight touch because I want the contrast on this cathedral spire here, because obviously the main point of this time lapse was to see the beautiful color hitting the side of the building and then also the shadow on the other side. So then what we're going to do is we're going to hold down shift and we're going to go to our 5th keyframe and we're going to go up to scripts and just hit the 01 time-lapse sync keyframes. And what that's going to do is that's just going to sync all of your edits in between the keyframes but also towards the keyframes as well. Then we're going to go to the 2nd keyframe. Now we're going to see what's changed in the scene. Now personally I think this is a bit too bright and I don't like how bright it is, so I'm going to bring the exposure down a touch as well. And then we're just going to do a little bit of play around, maybe add a little bit of red in here. Now this is a bit where you can get a bit creative and you can start playing around with your white balance and kind of add colors and stuff that wasn't necessarily there. And to be honest with you, the sunset in person wasn't very good today. So what we're going to do is we're going to just tweak those. I'm pretty happy with that. Personally, I like this bush because it leads you into the scene. To be honest, we're probably not going to use this super wide version. We might cut to it or we might crop it in a bit. But again, it should still be in focus because you basically don't touch your camera, especially when it's shooting this mode. Could have probably done with going a little bit higher, but nothing we can do about it now. So again, when I'm happy with this, I'm going to go hold shift again, and I'm not going to click the first keyframe. Specifically, I'm just going to do the ones afterwards. Then we're going to go back up to our scripts and we're going to sync those keyframes once again. And we're just going to repeat this process for the others as we go through. So I can notice that the camera is now really starting to darken this scene quite a lot. So I want to retain some of that highlight detail in the sky, but I don't really, I'm debating on what I want to do. I like actually making some of the foreground actually stay kind of dark here, but the thing is there's a weird banding happening in the sky. Don't know how well you can see that on video, but on this monitor, I don't know if it's a monitor or not, but so we're going to just be very, very cautious in regards to we don't want to overexpose anything, and we're just going to bring that down as well. There we go. So Going to do the same again, and I'm going to do the other 2 images exactly the same as I've done the other 3, and then we're going to go on to the next step. And as you move into the night time, and as you move further and further into blue hour, you want to slowly push your white balance closer to what it would be, so it slowly transitions throughout your scene. Going to bring the contrast down a little bit and bring up that exposure a touch as well, because the cathedral's lights are now starting to come on a little bit, so we can start to see them. And there we go. We're then going to do the same on the last frame, like so. There we go. And now we're starting to get some beautiful drag shutter speeds. So we have on this time lapse, actually it went all the way to 15 seconds, which I'm actually really surprised that it caught up. I was able to keep up, to be honest with you. But it's very, very beautiful, very, very lovely. That beautiful, like blurred out sky and blurred out clouds when you have a longer shutter speed. I actually forgot completely when I was shooting this on P mode to set the maximum shutter speed, so I'm actually really curious to see how this one plays and see how it actually did later on in the time lapse, to see whether it could keep up, because I was still shooting it at an 8% interval, which means it was holding those frames in that buffer. So as I say, we're going to just play around with this white balance a little bit. I don't want it to be too blue, because I do like how red some of these clouds are actually looking, so I'm going to add a little bit of red in. And this is the bit where you can get very creative, and I would always recommend you do go a little bit more creative, but I don't want it to be, I don't want the cathedral spire itself to be so orange. I mean, the light itself is orange, but you can, like for example, if I go all the way to blue, that's obviously too much, you can make it actually a lot closer to a white balance, or a white color. But I think for this one, I think we'll keep it on the more orange tone, only because I want to keep and retain this red in the sky. So when we're happy and when you've done all your edits, you're then going to save this image as media data by just hitting Control and S, or right click on the image, going to media data, and then hit save media data to file. And what this is going to do is this is going to save those changes that you've made here in Lightroom to the raw file in Pacific. So when you've done all of that to all 5, then what you want to do is you want to go back to LRTimelapse and you want to hit this reload button. And what this is going to do is this is going to read the data from the files again, and it's going to readjust those keyframe points for you. And then what you're going to do, because at the moment we've got big jumps and big changes, so what you want to do is you want to click auto transition. And what this is going to do is this is going to auto calculate the transition between the first keyframe and the second keyframe to make it very, very small intervals of change between the two. And then what you want to do is just want to go on visual preview. Now this bit's going to take a bit of time, and probably my computer, my laptop's fans are going to ramp up quite loudly, so apologies about any noise. But yeah, so that's now going to work in the background a little bit, and what it's doing is it's creating very small JPEGs of each of those frames, and this will give you a very, very good representation of what the time lapse is actually going to look like after you render it out. Now we're going to be doing the process of rendering it out as images, so then we can have all those images, high-res images. So we shot 6K images today, but we would have the option to be able to do crop in if we wanted to, or be able to do some dolly zooms in and etc. when it comes to the post-production process. So I'll be back when this visual preview is done, and yeah, then we're going to have a little look at the first time lapse today, and then we're going to repeat that process for the second time lapse. So we've just finished the visual preview, so we're going to press play and we're going to have a look and see how deflickered. I already know this is going to need a little bit of deflickering, but that's going to be the next step we're going to go on. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look and see what actually happens. So this is really bad in my opinion regarding flicker. So we're not really going to judge the time lapse too much until we've actually deflickered it. And to be honest, the auto mode, it goes very weird at the end because of the shutter speed. So I think it started missing frames. Let's have a look. This is how we can look, see how it missed frames, because I think it jumped. Yeah, it started doing, because it jumped, this was completely my fault. The images look really cool, right? But the actual interval jumped to like 8 seconds when it was like an 8-second shutter. Then it jumped the interval and doubled the interval to 16. Then we had a 24. So what we're probably going to do is just shave off the end of this time lapse, but that doesn't change the fact that we still need to deflicker it. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag a box in the sky, specifically where there's nothing specifically in the sky. There we go. And it's just going to realign, and what we're basically looking at is it's looking at exposure change, but now within this box. We're going to go then to visual deflicker, and what we want to do is we want to make this line as flat as possible. So the green line is what's going to become after it's calculated it, and the purple line is currently where we are at. We're going to click apply, and then it's going to go through this process one more time. It's going to save those visual previews that it's already created for us, and then it's going to do the same thing again, and it's going to deflicker that time lapse. So sometimes it takes 1 or 2 times to actually deflicker specifically. So yeah, I'm going to do this once just to show you the difference, and then I think we're going to just show you the final steps of what it takes to actually get one of these time lapses to become a video file, and then I'm going to end off this video because I'm very conscious of the fact that it is starting to get very long. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this a little bit more long form content, and yeah, so I'll be back when this is done.
A few moments later.
Voila, we are back, we are finished. So we've just done a visual preview, and I can just see by this purple line that we're probably going to have to do probably 1, maybe 2 more takes specifically. Let's have a little look. So we've got this a lot very far in and out, in and out, in and out, and out. And that's mostly because of how fast our shutter speed was at the start of this time lapse. It gets a bit easier and it gets a bit nicer as the evening moves on, and then it just goes crazy at the end. I mean, that looks really cool because it speeds up towards the end, but like the images themselves, I think the single frames are going to look really cool. I mean, something I would love to try is like something in which we start a lot longer, like maybe a longer term time lapse, something we might set up here actually. Now we have our lens skirt for the window, is basically, you know, ramping our shutter really, really long, so we can get that beautiful cloud movement and exposure. But anyway, I'm getting off tangent. So we're going to do this one more time, and I'm not going to let you sit through it because while it's doing it, I'm going to just talk you through the next steps of how you would go about actually editing this, because that's the bulk of the editing work done. So while that's doing that, we're going to go back into Lightroom, and when you are done and you're happy with your time lapse and you're specifically happy, you're then going to go over here to where we went into our filters again, and we're going to change it back to our full sequence. You're then going to click Control A, and then you're going to read. So you're going to go Control A. I'll do it on here. You're going to go Control A. You're going to right click. You're going to go to media data, and you're going to read media data from files. Now what this is going to do is it's going to look at every single raw file, and it's going to see what LRtimelapse has done, and it's going to apply those changes within Lightroom. Then you're going to render those images out in Lightroom specifically, and then after that you're going to import that set of images as an image sequence. So I'd recommend you put those images in a separate folder known as Final within the folder that we made for the camera specifically that we shot on, and etc. So when we've done that, we can then be in a position where we can render out those images, and then what you want to do is you want to take it into Premiere or After Effects, and then you can have those options to render it out into a video file specifically if you just want the time lapse as a video file. But what I do when I create these vlogs, for example, and what I will do when it comes to this video specifically, is I'm going to try and show you what would happen if we just took a video, just took a time lapse out of camera, no editing at all, followed by then the edited version, and why editing is a very important role when it comes to time lapse photography. But we don't have a lot more time because this is going to take forever, and yeah, so I want to wrap up this video, and the rest is pretty self-explanatory, to be honest with you. But if you would like me to do a follow-up video where I go a little bit more in depth, because I already am fully aware that this video is dragging, so I don't want it to drag too much. So thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy and you would like to check out any gear in this video specifically, so whether that's the lens, the camera, the computer, etc., I'll leave links to those in the description down below. Now they are going to be affiliate links, they are going to be commission-based affiliate links, so I get a very small kickback whenever you do purchase through those links. So if you are interested in getting some new equipment, do please use those links, because I do benefit and it does support the channel. So thank you so much for joining me once again. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave it with a like. I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you very, very soon. We're going to be creating more content like this, and I've got some new stuff planned, and I've got lots of things planning as well. So yeah, I'll see you very, very soon.